What if I told you that everything you've been taught about God, the Bible, and history itself has been altered? That the war between good and evil predates religion itself, and that the greatest lie ever told was crafted to keep humanity in bondage? I was a pastor devoted to spreading God's word until I started asking the questions no one dared to. What I found were truths buried for centuries, truths that the church, the government, and the elite have worked tirelessly to suppress. I was cast out for fulfilling my true calling, revealing God's hidden knowledge to the people. But I refused to be silenced. The Anunnaki, the gods of ancient Mesopotamia, the clash between Marduk and Thoth, the hidden wars that shaped the very prophecies of the Old Testament. This is the knowledge they never wanted you to find. This is the truth that was erased, rewritten, and manipulated, not to enlighten, but to control. They took everything from me for bringing this truth to light, but they can't silence me. And if you've made it this far, it means you're ready to see beyond the illusion. Subscribe now. Join this journey, because the deception runs deeper than you've ever imagined, and it's time to wake up. Long before organized religion took hold, before the biblical prophets spoke of divine wars and the rise of a new kingdom, an ancient battle raged across the earth. But this was no war of mere mortals. It was a clash of gods, a struggle that shaped the spiritual, political, and prophetic foundations of human civilization. At the center of this cosmic conflict stood two brothers, Marduk and Thoth. Born of Enki, the great architect of humanity, they were destined for power. But they were not allies. Marduk, driven by ambition, sought to rule the earth with absolute authority. To him, order could only exist under one god, one ruler, and one predetermined fate for mankind. Thoth, on the other hand, was the guardian of wisdom, the keeper of sacred knowledge. He believed humanity's destiny should be shaped by enlightenment, not by control. The battle between them was not just one of power, it was a clash of ideology. Would the earth be ruled by force or guided by wisdom? As Marduk's influence grew, he crowned himself the king of the gods in Babylon, declaring his supremacy over both heaven and earth. But his conquest was more than military, it was spiritual. He sought to erase the old gods, replacing them with a singular divine authority that all would be forced to obey. The Babylonian texts tell of Marduk's rise, chronicling how he vanquished Tiamat, the primordial force of chaos, establishing a new cosmic order where he alone held dominion. But Thoth saw the dangers in Marduk's rule. Knowledge, he argued, was not meant to be hoarded, but shared. Spirituality was not meant to be imposed, but discovered. His teachings, preserved in the Emerald Tablets, spoke of cosmic balance, divine cycles, and a path to enlightenment that transcended the material world. He understood that true power did not come from ruling over others, but from understanding the universe and one's place within it. But Thoth's defiance made him a threat. As Marduk tightened his grip on power, he moved to silence all who opposed him, including the wisdom Thoth had safeguarded. The ancient knowledge of Atlantis, Egypt, and Mesopotamia was systematically suppressed, its secrets buried or erased from history. Priesthoods loyal to Marduk proclaimed his dominion over all gods, while Thoth's teachings survived only in whispers, passed down through hidden mystery schools. But this war did not end with their lifetimes. Its echoes shaped the religions and scriptures that would come long after. Marduk's vision of a single supreme God laid the groundwork for the monotheistic traditions that would follow: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Old Testament's prophecies of a great king, a divine war, and the fall of false gods are distant echoes of Marduk's ancient conquest. Meanwhile, Thoth's wisdom was scattered, hidden beneath layers of secrecy, waiting to be uncovered by those who dared to seek the truth. The war between Marduk and Thoth was more than a battle of gods. It was the first great struggle for the soul of humanity. And though history may not speak of it, its influence still lingers to this day. Prophecy didn't start with the Bible. Long before the Old Testament prophets spoke of a coming divine ruler, the Babylonians had their own vision of fate, one that foretold Marduk's rise as the supreme god and ruler of the earth. His ascension wasn't seen as a coincidence or the result of human ambition. It was written in the stars, recorded in sacred texts, and proclaimed by the priesthoods long before it came to be. Marduk's rise to power is immortalized in the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic. According to these ancient texts, the universe was once ruled by Tiamat, the primordial goddess of chaos. The gods, struggling to bring order to the cosmos, called upon Marduk, the son of Enki, to be their champion. In exchange for ultimate power, Marduk promised to defeat Tiamat. With celestial weapons in hand, he struck down the great dragon, split her body in two, and from her remains he created the heavens and the earth. This event wasn't just mythology. It was the first recorded messianic prophecy. The story of a divine warrior defeating a great beast, bringing order and ruling as the chosen king became the foundation for future religious prophecies. The concept of a chosen one, anointed by the gods to defeat chaos and establish righteousness, originated here. The idea that a ruler would come to destroy the enemies of the divine and create a kingdom of virtue wasn't new when the biblical prophets spoke of it. It was taken from Marduk's prophecy. After Marduk fulfilled it, the priests of Babylon declared him the one true God, placing him above all others. They rewrote the old religious traditions, erasing the names of former gods and ensuring Marduk's rule would be seen as both inevitable and divinely ordained. This wasn't just politics. It was spiritual warfare. By controlling the prophecies, the priesthood ensured that future generations would see Marduk's supremacy as fate. This belief system seeped into the Hebrew prophets who lived under Babylonian rule. Many of their visions of divine wars, the destruction of false gods, and the arrival of a messianic ruler were direct reflections of Babylonian ideology. The Book of Daniel, with its prophecy of 4 kingdoms and the rise of an eternal divine empire, mirrors the Babylonian conviction that Marduk's reign would last forever. Even the Book of Revelation, with its vision of the great beast and the final battle, echoes Marduk's conflict with Tiamat and the triumph of divine kingship. What the world has mistaken for biblical prophecy was, in reality, a continuation of Babylon's spiritual conquest. Marduk's war didn't end with Tiamat. It was woven into the prophecies of later religions, ensuring his legacy would guide human destiny. The question remains, were these prophecies true divine revelations, or were they part of an ancient scheme to shape the course of civilization? In the battle for control over the earth, power wasn't only measured by military might or divine rule, it was measured by knowledge. Those who controlled knowledge controlled reality itself. This was the true battleground between Marduk and Thoth, 2 brothers representing opposing forces, dominance versus wisdom, rulership versus enlightenment. Marduk believed the future belonged to kings, rulers, and priesthoods that would enforce divine law. His vision was a world where knowledge was restricted, accessible only to the elite who ruled in his name. His Babylonian priesthood meticulously rewrote history, altering sacred texts to make sure only his version of reality would be passed down. To control humanity, Marduk knew he had to control their beliefs. Thoth, however, held a different vision. As the god of wisdom, writing, and sacred knowledge, Thoth believed enlightenment should be available to all. He saw knowledge not as a means of control, but as a path to freedom. Thoth understood that as long as humanity was kept in the dark, they would remain slaves to the gods. He resisted Marduk's efforts to seize total power, ensuring that hidden truths were preserved, waiting for those brave enough to seek enlightenment and uncover them. Thoth's greatest accomplishment was the creation of the Emerald Tablets, a sacred text that contained the secrets of the universe, the laws of reality, and the hidden knowledge of human divinity. In these writings, Thoth unveiled the cycles of time, the unseen forces that govern existence, and the path to spiritual ascension. He warned of false gods who would claim divinity only to seek control. He prophesied a time when knowledge would be suppressed, only to resurface when humanity was ready to embrace it again. But Marduk's priesthood worked relentlessly to erase Thoth's influence. They altered sacred texts, rewrote history, and demonized those who pursued forbidden knowledge. The Hebrew Bible, shaped by Babylonian theology, reflects this ongoing war against wisdom. The serpent in the Garden of Eden, who offered humanity knowledge, is a direct reflection of Thoth's role as the bringer of enlightenment. In the rewritten version, knowledge was no longer seen as a gift. It became a sin. Those who sought it were cast out, cursed, and forced to suffer. Despite these attempts to erase it, Thoth's teachings endured in fragments, hidden within secret traditions. The mystery schools of Egypt, the Hermetic texts of Greece, the esoteric teachings of the Gnostics. While the masses were guided to worship the authoritarian god of war, a few continued to seek the deeper truth. That knowledge is the key to freedom. The war between Marduk and Thoth was not just a clash of gods. It was the first great ideological war, a struggle that persists to this day. Humanity remains torn between two forces, one that seeks to dominate through fear and submission, and the other that offers enlightenment through understanding. The choice, as always, is ours. The God of the Old Testament is often depicted as a deity of wrath, conquest, and absolute power. He commands armies, obliterates nations, and demands unquestioning obedience. He rewards the faithful and punishes the defiant. This is not the behavior of a universally loving creator. It is the rule of a divine king, enforcing his reign through war and destruction. This model of rulership did not originate in Israel. It was a Babylonian invention, created under Marduk's reign. As the supreme god of Babylon, Marduk established a monotheistic kingship, declaring himself the one true ruler of both heaven and earth. His priests rewrote history to erase the old gods, consolidating all divine authority under his name. The portrayal of Yahweh in the Old Testament mirrors this very structure. The Hebrew people, exiled and shaped by Babylonian culture, absorbed Marduk's concept of divine kingship into their own theology. The stories of Yahweh's wars, his destruction of rival gods, and his demand for exclusive worship are echoes of Marduk's reign over Babylon. The books of Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel repeatedly highlight the destruction of false gods and the rise of a divine empire, themes that originated in Babylonian prophecy. Yahweh's emphasis on war as a means to fulfill divine will mirrors Marduk's belief that conquest was necessary to establish order. The destruction of cities like Jericho, Ai, and the Amalekites reflects the same mentality seen in Marduk's Babylonian campaigns, where non-believers were crushed, their lands taken, and their gods wiped from history. The Ten Commandments, declaring Yahweh as the only true God and forbidding the worship of others, reflect the exact proclamations made by Marduk's priests. Even the concept of divine judgment, where nations are punished for not submitting to God's rule, follows the Babylonian template. Marduk's vision for the world was one of centralized worship, strict adherence to divine law, and the elimination of competing deities. This model became the foundation for Yahweh's rule in the Old Testament, a God who rewards unwavering loyalty and punishes those who stray. But was Yahweh always intended to be this way? Or was his identity merged with Marduk's authoritarian rule during the Babylonian exile? The Hebrews, having been conquered by Babylon, were directly exposed to Marduk's theology. When they returned to their homeland, they carried with them a redefined vision of God, one influenced by the very empire that had once enslaved them. The God of Israel, once associated with wisdom, justice, and spiritual balance, had now adopted the characteristics of a war god, a ruler of nations, a deity who demanded conquest and obedience. Was this transformation intentional, or was it the result of history being rewritten by those who sought to seize power? The God of the Old Testament is not just a spiritual force, he is a reflection of Marduk's shadow. The story of the Tower of Babel has been widely misunderstood. In the biblical narrative, humanity once shared a single language and worked together to construct a tower that would reach the heavens. But God, angered by their ambition, confused their language and scattered them across the earth, ensuring they would never unite again. This story has been taught as a lesson in humility, a warning that humanity must not challenge divine authority. But when we trace this story back to its Babylonian and Sumerian origins, a very different picture begins to unfold, one that reveals an intentional suppression of knowledge. The Tower of Babel was not about human arrogance, it was about controlling access to divine wisdom. At the core of this event was Marduk's war against Thoth, a battle that had been fought for centuries. Thoth, the god of wisdom, sought to preserve and share sacred knowledge, ensuring that humanity could evolve beyond mere servitude. He understood that true power lay not in rulership, but in understanding the universe, the divine cycles, and the hidden forces that shape reality. He passed down this wisdom through sacred texts, mystery schools, and esoteric teachings, many of which later became the foundation for Hermeticism, Gnosticism, and other mystical traditions. But Marduk, determined to rule as the supreme god, saw this knowledge as a direct threat to his authority. A world where humanity possessed divine wisdom was one where the gods could no longer control them. Marduk's priesthood worked relentlessly to suppress the teachings of Thoth, labeling them as heretical, dangerous, and forbidden. The destruction of the Tower of Babel was not an act of divine punishment. It was a calculated move to divide humanity, ensuring they would never again have access to the full scope of ancient knowledge. The original Sumerian and Babylonian texts suggest that the tower was not a physical structure, but a metaphor for human unity and enlightenment. The goal was not to reach heaven physically, but to reclaim the divine wisdom lost when the gods first established their rule over humanity. The builders of Babel were not rebels against God. They were seekers of truth, followers of Thoth, striving to reconnect with the divine forces beyond Marduk's control. By dividing humanity and fragmenting their language and culture, Marduk's priesthood ensured that spiritual wisdom would remain locked away. Different civilizations developed conflicting religious doctrines, fighting amongst themselves instead of seeking enlightenment. Knowledge was no longer shared freely. It became the property of priestly elites who controlled access to sacred texts, rituals, and divine teachings. This event marked the beginning of a long history of suppression. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria, the persecution of Gnostics, the burning of mystical texts, all of these later events followed the same blueprint first set at Babel. The gods feared what would happen if humanity rediscovered its own divine nature, so they ensured that knowledge was divided, hidden, and declared forbidden. The Tower of Babel was never about language, it was about control. The destruction of unity ensured that Marduk's rule would go unchallenged, while Thoth's wisdom remained buried, waiting for those who dared to seek the truth. The Book of Revelation, the most mysterious and apocalyptic text in the Bible, describes an ultimate war in the heavens, a battle between divine forces, the return of a great king, and the destruction of false gods. For centuries, religious scholars have debated its meaning, interpreting it as a prophecy of the second coming, the final battle between good and evil, and the end of the world as we know it. But this prophecy is far older than Christianity. The same themes, a returning ruler, a great war in the heavens, the destruction of an old order, and the rise of a new divine kingdom, can be traced back to the ancient war between Marduk and Thoth. What the world calls the end times may not be an event that is yet to come. It may be the chapter of an ancient cosmic war that has been repeating for thousands of years. The Book of Revelation describes a beast rising from the sea, a war in heaven, and a new Jerusalem descending from the sky. These are not random symbols. They align with the Babylonian and Egyptian records of divine conflict. In the Enuma Elish, Marduk defeats Tiamat, the chaotic sea goddess, establishing order. In the Old Testament, Yahweh conquers Leviathan, the great sea serpent. These are echoes of the same event, the rise of a divine ruler who overthrows the old gods. So where does Thoth fit in? His role has always been that of the preserver of knowledge, the guardian of cosmic balance, and the protector of divine wisdom. If Marduk is the war god who demands control, Thoth is the keeper of truth who resists domination. The final battle described in Revelation may not be between God and Satan, but between Marduk's authoritarian kingship and Thoth's path of enlightenment. This raises an urgent question. Who is the returning king that humanity is unknowingly preparing for? Many believe that the end times will bring the return of a divine ruler, a Messiah who will establish a new kingdom on earth. But if this figure aligns with Marduk, it means that his empire of control, which began in Babylon, is about to be fully restored. If so, modern religion has misled billions into awaiting the return of a ruler who will enforce divine kingship over mankind. Meanwhile, Thoth's role in the end times has been erased. If he represents enlightenment, knowledge, and human ascension, his return would not be as a conquering king, but as a guide, one who empowers humanity to reclaim the wisdom that was stolen from them. But his presence has been demonized, hidden and buried beneath centuries of religious doctrine that demands obedience instead of awakening. What is unfolding today is not simply religious prophecy coming to pass. It is the continuation of an ancient war between two brothers, two forces, two destinies for mankind. and the outcome will determine whether humanity remains under divine rule or awakens to its true potential. For thousands of years, humanity has been trapped in a repeating cycle of divine warfare, prophecy, and control. The same story has played out across civilizations, disguised under different names. A great war in the heavens, the return of a divine king, the destruction of the old world, and the rise of a new order. But this cycle was never about the evolution of mankind. It was about ensuring that humanity remained within a system designed by the gods. The conflict between Marduk and Thoth was never fully resolved. Their struggle was not just about rulership. It was about the very destiny of the human race. Would humanity be ruled by divine kingship, forced into obedience under a returning god? Or would humanity reclaim its lost wisdom and ascend beyond the control of the gods themselves? Marduk's vision, echoed in modern religious prophecy, leads to a world governed by a single ruler enforcing divine law upon mankind. His return has been foretold in countless scriptures, leading billions to unknowingly prepare for the restoration of his kingdom on earth. If this prophecy unfolds, the cycle of divine kingship will continue, and humanity will once again be placed under a celestial ruler who demands total allegiance. But Thoth's path offers another way. His teachings, preserved in hidden texts, buried beneath religious suppression, speak of a different destiny. He warned of false gods who would claim divinity, of rulers who would demand worship instead of offering enlightenment. He taught that the key to breaking free from this cycle is not in waiting for salvation, but in awakening to the power that already exists within. The greatest deception ever imposed upon mankind is the belief that it must be ruled. That knowledge is dangerous. That questioning divine authority is a sin. That enlightenment can only come through external forces rather than from within. This is the ultimate trap, one designed to keep humanity blind to its own potential, waiting for a god to return instead of realizing that it was never meant to be ruled in the first place. Breaking the cycle means recognizing the game that has been played for millennia. It means understanding that prophecy is not destiny. It is a script written by those who seek control. The divine wars of the past are still being waged today, not in the heavens, but in the minds of men. The moment humanity stops believing in the illusion of divine rulership, the cycle collapses. The truth behind prophecy is simple. It is not about the end of the world, but about the end of control. The real battle is not between good and evil, but between those who seek to rule and those who seek to awaken. And for the first time in history, humanity has a choice. Will we continue to wait for the return of a God-King? Or will we reclaim our sovereignty and step into the divine power that was hidden from us all along? The cycle can be broken, the truth can be reclaimed. And when it is, the war of the gods will finally come to an end, not through prophecy, but through the awakening of mankind itself.